Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Veronica. I am a Filipino Cuban nurse living in Australia. On my last video, I talked about my experience buying our first car here in Australia and also about finding a rental property. So, on this YouTube Live, I just want to build more on that. And if you are joining here today, if you have any questions, then just write it down in the comment section below, and I will try and answer your questions to the best of my ability. Also, if you are joining, do let me know where you are watching this video. If you are in New Zealand or if you are in the Philippines or somewhere else, just write it down in the comment section below. All right. So about my video, about our first rent car here in Australia, someone asked because I did mention that I got that car for by applying a car loan, and I just want to maybe talk more about that. So there's different companies here in Australia. And I guess in terms of lenders, I've seen this in a property investment group chat, but I feel like this is also relevant for you guys, just so you are aware. Because initially, I guess it totally depends on your experience, or your financial situation as well. If you can buy your first car here in Australia, cash basis, or you have the money to spare, then that's all well and good. However, if you do need to apply for a car loan, like I did, you may need to know that there are different lenders here in Australia. So, typical, for example, first year lenders, your ANZ, they would ask for, I think they asked us initially for like 3 months worth of our pay slip. However, when we moved here, it was very important for us to get our car right away. So we couldn't really do that and wait for that 3 month worth of pay slip. So we did ask. We did ended up signing up for a car loan in a third tier lender. So I'll just give you a bit of an overview. So in Australia, first year lenders are typically the major banks such as Commonwealth Bank, Westpac, ANZ, and National Australia Bank. And this information is just shared information from a property investment group chat, but I thought while we're talking about lenders, this might be for a good reference for you. So they are considered the most financially stable and have a wide range of products and services available to customers. They also have a larger branch network and offer a range of financial services and products for personal, business, and institutional customers. Generally, their credit policy is similar and very black and white, and rates between them typically mirror each other within a small margin. And then there's what you call second tier lenders. So they are generally considered to be regional and customer owned banks. They are not as large as the major banks, but they still have a significant presence in the Australian banking market. They may have a more limited branch network than the major banks, but they usually offer competitive rates and products to their customers. Second tier tend to be a little more specialized in certain areas. Some are great for business or self-employed customers. Others are accommodating towards certain industries such as nurses or emergency services. And some tend to not shade certain incomes as much as the majors. Common names here are Suncorp, Macquarie, and ME. Third-tier lenders, on the other hand, are smaller financial institutions and non-bank lenders. They may not have the same level of financial stability as the major banks, and their product offerings may be more limited. They typically, but not always, have higher interest rates. These lenders usually offer the highest borrowing capacity. I think they're talking now into property lending. But some examples here are First Mac, La Trobe, Liberty, and Pepper Money. When we first moved to Australia, I didn't really know much about the lending company, things like that. But like I said, when we bought our first car here in Australia, if you go through the first tier lenders, they would typically ask for a longer period of time for the proof of your financial income, I guess, your pay slip. But for us, it was more practical to sign up with the third tier, like Pepper Money. But the interest rate was higher compared to, I guess, a first tier lending company. But they only ask us for like a fortnight worth of your pay slip. So obviously, this is not a financial advice. I'm just sharing my experience. So it's totally up to you, your financial situation, and then how much, I guess, you're willing to risk in terms of like the high interest rate. But just letting you know that that was the option that we ended up with. I have paid my car now, so that's a bit grateful of. At least it's less thing to worry about. Okay, and then I have also previously mentioned that for transportation, we looked at a website called Auto Trader, but as you know, not very good with cars. So that was more to do with my husband's research, and I just had a look at the car and then said, "Yeah, this will do." So hopefully you have a friend that can guide you, in terms of like the in and outs of inspecting your car, your first car. All right. By the way, if we're just meeting, Kia ora, my name is Binibining Veronica. I am a Filipino QA nurse. Like I said, I'm living now in Australia. On this channel, I share videos like this one, living abroad. And if you want to plan better about your big move to Australia or New Zealand, subscribe and turn on notification bell so you'll know when I upload new videos just like this one. So if you are just joining, we are talking about moving from New Zealand to Australia, sharing my experience about buying our first car. Again, not a financial advice, but in my experience, I did have to sign up with a lending company, apply for a car loan for that first car. But, gratefully, luckily, it's been paid off now. Okay. Now, what else can I tell you? Oh, sorry. I'm based here in Queensland, and when I moved here last year, some friends did tell me that the price of cars in Australia is a bit more expensive compared to New Zealand, and specifically if you're after like small cars, the supply is I'm a bit short. So I did meet someone. She was based from Auckland, and they also moved to Queensland, and they did have to wait a while for their car. I think bongga yan sila eh. I think they got a brand new car, so they did have to wait for it to be delivered. I'm not sure if there's still a shortage of like small cars in Queensland, but definitely when we moved here last year, that was something that was a bit challenging for us. All right, we'll jump to and talk about rental property shortly. I'm just trying to see if there's any questions there now. All right. So in terms of rental property in Australia, the website that I usually look at is real estate. Let me just check the so realestate.com.au, or the other one is here typing domain.com.au. And that for me was a good website to check for rental properties. Now, just know that in Australia at the moment, they do have a rental crisis. As an example, I've seen recently in the news, like they were advertising this, I guess, I can't remember, 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom unit in Melbourne, and there were like 30 applicants for that property. But that rental crisis is definitely evident, in other parts of Australia, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane. Not so sure about Perth, but yeah, those Uh, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Tasmania, for sure. So it can be a bit challenging for you. So I guess I'm just giving you a heads up. And we do have a Discord channel as well, for nurses with New Zealand license or wanting to move to Australia. And sometimes we chat. Nakikibasa lang ako. I don't really, I'm not as active as I want to be. But there were some questions there about like tips for getting a rental property. I think first off, just know that it's really difficult. It can be really challenging. So if you watch my vlog, I've been trying to look for rental property even before moving to Australia. So even while we were in New Zealand, but it was really challenging then. And then for our first 2 weeks in Australia, we actually ended up staying in a hotel, which was more expensive. I do not recommend that at all. But you know, sometimes you're left with no choice, diba? Parang yun na yung better option. And then what else? Um, and then yeah, so for some options, if you're struggling to find a rental accommodation, you can ask your employer if you know if they are offering relocation allowance or relocation support, or if they can support you in finding an accommodation. So I have a friend who recently moved from New Zealand to Gold Coast, and luckily her employer sponsored their first 2 weeks in a hotel. So she moved here with her partner. So at least even though they were staying in a hotel, they didn't have to pay for it, you know, right away. It's sponsored by their employer. So yeah, first off, you could ask your employer, you know, if there's any help they can offer. Or otherwise, if you are still outside of Australia, it's good if you have a friend who can attend the rental viewing for you, because otherwise, the agents would not necessarily entertain your application if you don't have anyone there to the and have Australian reference like your Australian based reference like your employer or you know a friend that you know. And then and unfortunately, there's really no shortcut around it. It's really more to do with like your diligence. You really have to keep applying and keep looking. Some people they try to go like on a higher rental, go for a higher rental property para less competition, ganyan. But again, it just depends on if you are in a financial you know situation to do that. Um, and then I want to go to look at average rental prices as well. Hold the line. Hold the line. Okay, I'll just share like the average rental price, but obviously it would still depend, you know, if your property is closer to the city, you know, the number of bedrooms, things like that. But I just got this on online, and it says it's just you know sharing some numbers from September 2022, property price and rental rates growth. So Greater Brisbane, median weekly rental value at 573, Brisbane East $676, Brisbane North $596, Brisbane South $620, Brisbane West $690, Brisbane Inner City $606 per week. So just sharing that. And like I said, you can look for advertisements of rental property through realestate.com.au or domain.com.au. And when you are in that website, you can actually filter it through prices, filter it through the number of bedrooms. And sometimes I would go in the map area, especially if you want to be closer to your workplace. It's just a lot easier for me anyway to choose property that way. And then I think when I was looking at the comment section yesterday, some of the things that I haven't managed to answer, there were some questions around, going to GP here, GP practices here in Australia. So same thing as New Zealand, you have to be registered. If you are a New Zealand citizen, you can apply for Medicare. Actually, I'll write the link to the Medicare website for your reference. But basically, upon arriving here in Australia, we applied for Medicare. We completed a set of forms, and then we emailed that through. Um, but even before we got our Medicare card, we actually had to visit ED for my daughter. Visit the ED, the emergency department for our daughter. But good thing is we didn't have to pay anything for that. So similar like in New Zealand. But for Medicare, so if you are registered to a GP practice, they have what they call here bulk billing. Let me know in the comment section if you want me to discuss more about that. But basically, same with New Zealand. There are some things that are covered, and there are some things that are not covered as well. So there could be with Medicare, there's help with cost of seeing a doctor, getting medicines, and accessing mental health care. But like I said, I feel like it's better if I just paste the Medicare website for your reference. Okay. Um, I'm just going through some of my notes because I wanted to check if there's some things that I wanted to go talk more about. Oops. How is life like here in Australia? I was like, it's a bit of an adjustment really, isn't it? Like you're taken away from the familiar things, so it's a bit scary. But I think we've found good support from friends that we've known in New Zealand, before, and then they're also here, and then from people that we've met here, and then work is really good as well. I have really good workmates, I have to say. Oh, by the way, if I can share, I've also managed to work in a private hospital and in a private hospital and a public hospital here in Australia. So, if you want to know more about that, let me know, and I can share you some of the experiences, pros and cons, ganyan. Okay. And by the way, I'd like to thank everyone who has helped this channel, by liking, subscribing, and I also got like a super thanks, like donation. So that was really surprising. Thank you so much, and also thank you for those who are supporting me through Buy Me a Coffee. And if not, thank you again for sharing my videos. Thank you for the lovely messages. It's been really challenging moving to a different country yet again. I moved to New Zealand when I was 22 years old, and then here I am, or here I was last year, moving to another country. This time with a 2-year-old, so it can be a bit daunting. I wonder, actually, are you also thinking of moving from New Zealand to Australia, or maybe from your home country to Australia? Let me know why. Yeah, and then let me know what you're most scared of, I guess, of the big move. And then your motivation then, syempre, why you'd like to do this adventure and who you're doing this adventure with. Are you moving with a family, with your children, or are you doing it by yourself? Sabi ng friend ko, from New Zealand din yan siya. Sabi niya, Australia is a beautiful country, but yun nga lang, personally, I haven't had a chance to visit pa. So I think if you ask me now, which country is more beautiful, I'll still say New Zealand, only because, I think as a family, we had a chance to really explore New Zealand, in the last 10 years. But sa Australia, hindi pa masyado, pero we're just based here in Queensland. and we haven't really had a chance to like travel even for. I think we went to Sunshine Coast. It's beautiful. Sunshine Coast is beautiful. But we only stayed there for like a week. And the weather definitely, it's super hot. It's really warm. I would say the weather wise, it's very humid. Um, how do I describe humidity? Ano ba? Imagine like you're a fish and like you're swimming, and then you're having fun swimming, and then you jump really high, and then you ended up in the pavement. Tapos parang so dry, so humid, parang ganyan. Ganyan yung feeling with the weather. It has gotten a bit better because diba March na, so moving into autumn, or we are technically in autumn. Um, but yeah, the summer so it was really hot, super hot. Autumn wise, I could say like at night it could be as cold as in Rotorua where we used to live in New Zealand. So nighttime, kind of the temperature will go down a bit like Rotorua, but not nothing crazy, nothing below 0 degrees, diba? Walang ganon. But in the morning, mainit pa din, still hot. The only good thing is, and I don't have to defrost my car. At defrost talaga. Because living in Rotorua, especially in the winter time, you would notice if you are in New Zealand or if you lived in Rotorua. Like, if you parked your car outside, like if it's not inside a garage or a carport, diba, mag-frost talaga siya, diba? So every morning shift, sige kung defrost. But dito sa Australia, I don't have to do that. And we are actually living in Moreton Bay Council, pero malapit siya sa Brisbane, like Brisbane City, ganyan. So the good thing is, don't have to worry about defrosting my car, ganyan. And then the sunrise, it's really early, parang 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, may araw na. That's the sunrise, so diba? Parang siyang may field trip. 5 o'clock na araw na, mga ganyan. Traffic-wise, when we were living in Brisbane, super traffic pa din, ganyan. Now, Moreton Bay Council, so workplace ko, from home to work to my workplace, takes about half an hour, one way. So feeling ko, syempre, effort na yun on my part. Kasi di ba sabi ko sa inyo, I don't really like driving as much. But, so when I was living in Rotorua, ang drive na ko lang yun, mga 15 minutes, di ba? Back and forth na. But here is, have to drive like half an hour one way. Like, it's really exhausting. Work at the moment is really good, I should say. But yeah, it's the driving, if anything, that is a bit exhausting for me. Husband ko is also a nurse, as you know. You may have seen him in some of my videos. But yun nga lang, he's based in the city, like CBD area, ganyan. So, depende sa traffic. Like sometimes, it'll take mga 1 hour and a half, one way, parang ganyan. Or if you're lucky, 1 hour, one way. Actually, I wanted to look up yung distance. So, wait lang. I'm just gonna mute myself for a moment. Tsaka nagchikahan na tayo, no? habang nagchika ka, wala lang. Gusto ko lang mag-share ng experiences ko. Ako lang naman nag-interesado sa buhay ko. Wait lang. I'm just trying to look up the distance. Hold on. All right. So I was sharing the distance like for my husband. So from home to his workplace. So we're technically living like by the edges. By the edges ng Brisbane Council. And then he works city. So it's technically 26 kilometers, ganyan. But On a good day, it can take like 40 minutes one way, but on a really bad day, like with a heavy traffic, it can take like 1 hour plus one way. And then same thing for my workplace. Yung workplace ko at the moment, technically the distance is only 15 kilometers from our home, but it takes about half an hour on a good day. I think siguro because I still have to pick up my daughter, drop her off, things like that. But yeah, pag traffic, it takes about 40 minutes one way. So I think yun yung parang isa din sa mga adjustment in terms of transportation is really the traffic. Um, Traffic, the expenses of buying your first car, and then mga insurances, ganyan. Um, just trying to check my tabs. Wait lang ha. Tignan ko lang yung tabs ko. By the way, are you also thinking of moving to Australia? Let me know in the comment section below ha. I'm trying to put things together. Medyo, ang hirap lang kasi because sometimes I get asked by my friends, ganyan. I had one couple ng friend ko last year. Yun nga, they were moving to Queensland as well. And then this year, by the end of the month, I have another friend moving from New Zealand to Melbourne. Melbourne naman sila, ganyan. So sometimes I think it's good when my friends ask me questions because like I can put it together, put a video around it, ganyan. So that's why I actually created this live video because yung friend ko moving from New Zealand to Melbourne, he was asking questions around, buying a car, ganyan. Kasi he actually asked me if is it better to transport your car, I guess, from New Zealand to Australia. But when I was researching that, I feel like that was more expensive. So we didn't go ahead with that one. And then may mga tax din kasi yan sila and then insurances. So you have to check as well. It depends on which state you're trying to move as well. So ayan, depende lang yan talaga. But for us, for my husband and myself, kasi we have older cars. Yung car ko in New Zealand was a 2004 Ford Fiesta. O, diba? 2004. Tapos, that was my first car in New Zealand and my forever car in the last 10 years. And, actually, naibenta ko pa yung car na yun. I can't remember where. I just sold it locally eh. I think I got $1,000 for the car. O, diba? Nabenta ko ba? Ganyan talaga. Oh, ha? So it was really good because, it's not a lot. Technically, ano ba? In the overall scheme of things, hindi naman malaki yung pinagbentahan. But di ba syempre, makatulong pa rin siya panggastos namin initially here. Ganyan. And the same thing with my husband. He also sold his car, but he ended up selling it to our close friend. So ayun, which was really good as well. Shout out pala sa mga friends ko na nasa New Zealand. Hello, thank you sa support niyo. I miss my friends actually. I miss my friends in New Zealand. Hold on, pag-usapan natin yan shortly. Wait lang. I think a while back, I shared yung parang ano ba? Kung ano na pinag-usapan natin, sorry. Ang topic natin is first car and rental property. But I am just gonna share about that, first adjustment period na I think I saw it in a New Zealand website. Parang, what was it called? Hold on. Let me just have a look. I saw it when I was doing my video, I think about moving to New Zealand sa una pa. Something to do with feeling of adjustment. So stages of settling in. And then, so it says here, moving to a new country is a big life change that involves a lot of adjustment. You will likely feel a degree of culture shock at some point. You might go through emotional stages as you settle in and start to feel comfortable. So yung sa website ng New Zealand immigration, they actually have a photo of the settlement curve. Before arrival, all the excitement, you're feeling good. I guess you also part of you also imagine what life would be like, diba? Or if you're not really in a good situation right now, I think it's more, you have some thoughts of like, oh, the relief of leaving the situation you're in. And then when you finally go in that country, for example, in our case, Australia, you go through a bit of a dip in emotion, like, settling in, trying to sort out all the things that need sorting out for work, for your home. Living in Australia, especially meron sila dito yung uh, MyGov account. So that's where everything is, mga government related websites. And then you might actually ended up like having some period of time where you're not sure if you want to stay. You may decide to leave. There's also a stage of fighting against the bad feelings and deciding to make the most of the opportunity that you found, and then eventually starting to feel settled and comfortable in your new life. Some people will feel settled sooner than others. And I think siguro for me, actually, I think if I'm being honest, no, one of the reasons why I didn't recreate like a vlog, like day to day vlog about moving to Australia is because a part of me still wanted to stay in New Zealand, thinking of New Zealand, and also there are good things here in Australia. So it's a conflicting feeling, I think, initially. And if you are moving, I think it's very good to have your strong support system, your family, your friends that you can talk to, hopefully, because it's really stressful. I cannot highlight this enough. It's really stressful experience. And yun nga, yung my friend who's moving from New Zealand to Melbourne, they're also moving like with us, with a family, small family, ganyan. So parang, prepping them, helping them, what things to look out for, I guess. Um, and yeah, first car and rental property, it's really important to learn how to drive if you're moving to New Zealand or Australia. Especially if you are in like a rural area, ganyan, or regional area, because the public transportation may not be as reliable. And then I guess while we're talking about first car, for your reference, we managed to convert our New Zealand driver's license. So for our New Zealand driver's license to Australian driver's license. So that was pretty straightforward enough. They only asked us, I think, for our proof of address, proof of identity. We had to pay for the conversion, but that was pretty straightforward. And then we also signed up with insurance, car insurance, right there and then. Only because hindi mo masabi, ganyan, di ba? Especially if you are, driving a lot for a longer period of time. Okay, I think let me just have a look at my notes and check if there's anything I need to add in terms of first car, rental accommodation. Oh, by the way, if you are interested in terms of setting up your utilities, once you find your rental accommodation, the property manager usually recommends a provider that can set up for your power, your internet, or if there's gas there, they can also recommend a provider for you. It's really challenging because I was asking, my friends in Australia, what can you recommend? Ganyan. But they would often say it's really variable, especially on the state you're living in, ganyan. Or in terms of internet connection, kung saan ka nakatira. So they couldn't really recommend right there and then. Unless, of course, you have friends who are in a similar area. So for me, initially we were living in Brisbane City, but we didn't know anyone initially. So we just signed up with whoever the property manager recommended. But when we moved to Moreton Bay Council, we got some good recommendations from friends. I think it was with AGL. So we're with AGL now. Ay parang okay naman yung internet connection, nakakapag-Facebook live naman tayo, 'di ba? Ganyan. Okay naman. Tapos, car insurance, marami ka rin pagpipilian. I think merong RACQ for car insurance and then merong Suncorp. And usually, what you can do it online. You can ask for a quote and then you can compare, ganyan. So, whichever is, I guess, better for you in terms of the quote, kung how much services they offer compared to the other. Um, And then, by the way, wala silang ACC here in Australia. So, you know how in New Zealand we have ACC, and then like in case of car accidents, ACC din yung magko-cover ganyan. Dito naman, CTP. So, parang if you sign up for a car insurance, they'll also talk to you about CTP insurance. And I think I briefly talked about it in one of my vlogs. I'll try and find that video and paste it here. If you have other questions, just message me. That's my Facebook page. Otherwise, we do have a community tab in this YouTube channel, so you can message me there as well. Okay. For our rental property, by the way, I think we initially paid for like fortnightly, parang every 2 weeks, ganyan. Oh, by the way, speaking of rental property, I totally forgot. See, sabi ko dapat may notes ako eh. But I'm just trying to switch back and forth between car rental and rental property hanggang sa may maalala ko. In terms of rental property, I'm not really sure why, but for the rental property we had initially, you know how in New Zealand, like if it's $560 per week, for example, that's the amount that you pay, and then that's all. But in this rental property we actually had to pay extra because we were paying through our debit card. So parang instead of how much was our property? Pero instead of 560, parang siyang may pa siyang cents, like 561 point something ganyan. So I think just ask din siguro if they charge you extra. Hopefully not, kasi some of the people that we ask, di naman ganun yung setup nila, but I think, ganun lang yung nangyari in our situation. But, we're very fortunate kasi end of last year, we finally got our first property here in Australia. So, we moved out of that rental property sa city, and then we moved maybe a little bit further away. But it's not kasi kaya na budget namin, no? But at least, very grateful pa din na kahit pa paano, we have our own home now. Okay. All right. So for this live video, we talked about finding your first car in Australia, talking about, buying it up front if you can, if your budget permits. Otherwise, there's also option for car loan, depending on the lending company that you will sign up with. Some of them may ask 3 months worth of your payslip. Some will ask 2 weeks worth of your payslip. But there will be variation in terms of the interest rate, and in your personal situation, you just have to really analyze what is best for you. Like I said, there's no financial advice in this video, just personal experiences. In Australia, they don't have ACC like in New Zealand, so think about CTP insurance and car insurance as well. Maybe research more about that. Finding a rental property overall, I've told my friends who were planning to move to Australia, in my experience, it was a lot easier to find a job rather than a rental property, because unfortunately there is really a rental crisis here at the moment. We're not sure, when it will be solved, if it will be. But I pray that you find a good home for you and your family, even though it's gonna be a bit difficult. Well, I hope it's not gonna be difficult for you. I hope, it'll be straightforward and an easy process for you. I hope you find people that can help you with your process. With the rental property, usually you have to view the property. If you're unable to view for yourself, then hopefully you have a friend who can do it on your behalf. And then usually there's bond payment, and then you can pay either weekly or fortnightly. And in our experience, we just paid through a debit card. For our bond, we actually had to lodge it ourselves. But if the property manager can help you, then that'll make the whole process a lot easier. And when you do leave your property, they're very strict here in terms of cleaning your property. They will really take photos of every inch of the house, at least in my experience anyway. So it'll be good to make sure that everything is in order, or at least in a situation of how you found it initially, so you can get your bond back. In our experience, we didn't have any problem at all with our bond. We got it in the end when we left. Um, If you find this video helpful, you may want to check my other video about our journey moving from New Zealand to Australia. As always, I wish you all the best with your journey, and I hope I'll see you soon. Bye.